Welcome to Music Forever, a podcast by the New Horizons International Music Association. I am Irene Cohen. Mark Tietjen is currently serving as Executive Director and Conductor of the New Horizons Orchestra in Spokane, Washington, a position he has held since October 2019. A retired public high school music teacher, Mark brings 31 years of experience and musical performance excellence to New Horizons Orchestra, Spokane. While at the University High School in Spokane, his ensembles consistently received superior ratings at all local, regional, and international festivals. Professionally, Mark has performed with the Spokane Symphony, Clarion, Spokane Valley Summer Theatre, Coeur Alene Summer Theatre, Spokane British Brass Band, and is currently acting as principal percussionist with the Coeur Alene Symphony Orchestra. Mark will be conducting at the Cincinnati New Horizons Music Camp in July 2025. This interview took place in April 2025. Thank you so much for doing this interview. It's lovely having you here today.
It's a pleasure to get a chance to spend some time with you and our New Horizons family. So thank you very much for asking.
So Mark, our first question always is how did music get in your life?
You know, I think music came into my life by great teachers, inspirational teachers. Music was present in the home. My dad played piano very well. My mom played piano more than just passingly and was an excellent violinist. They didn't play in any community groups, but it was always present in the home. We always had, at that time, a really great console stereo, the giant piece of furniture, and access to all genres of music. I was always very surprised that they were so open to anything that I would drag home. I'm also one of those people that, as much as it's better to be lucky than good, and no real plan, I never had a plan to become a music teacher. My dad was a naval officer and career military. My mom was a nurse and a teacher, professional woman, highly educated. I had a great general music teacher in elementary school. And of course, everybody started with tonettes. Now we actually use recorders, a real instrument. When I was in fourth grade, I remember I wanted to take drum lessons. And Spokane had a nationally known and recognized percussion instructor in Howard Robbins. And I was able to get in with him in his studio, started drum lessons, and I loved it. It was easy, and I just kind of started and went. I would always get programmed, obviously the little drummer boy, but if there was a part that was needed in choir, I was the drum set player. So in fifth grade, we actually started band, and another phenomenal teacher who was my elementary teacher and later went on to teach at a very large middle school in Spokane and teach people that I still know. In fact, one of them is one of my New Horizons coaches, and his name was A.G. Tietjen, just a phenomenal band director. We went to junior high, 7th, 8th, and 9th. The director there, his name was John Frucci, and we just had this middle school band that was on fire. The kind of the overarching thing was that the neighborhood I lived in was newer development, so kind of that front edge of that demographic of parents coming through and wanting to do things with their kids. There must have been 6 or 7 really good percussionists, which of course for any band director is like gold because, now you can program stuff. And I got to high school. My director there was Mel Clayton. I still keep in touch with him. He couldn't find music hard enough for us, especially the drummers. And I know this because I've had lunch with Mel subsequently, and he said it was just something in the water, just this real rarefied experience. At that time, I could take 3 music classes a day. So I could take band, orchestra, and jazz band every day for 3 years. I graduated in 1975, and Eastern Washington University had just gotten a new percussion instructor fresh out of the University of Michigan, and he was dynamic and fantastic, so we just all headed out there. In 1976, we went down to Northridge, California, to the Percussive Arts Society competition and won just about everything. We're just this bunch of hayseeds from Cheney, Washington. The rest of the ensembles were struggling. So it was really, really difficult for me. Again, not always being the most focused person. We'd come out of percussion ensemble and we're playing absolutely the best contemporary literature. We're doing all this great stuff in lesson and loving it. And we get to, I have to say this delicately, we get to orchestra and it's, Mozart, whatever, for the fifth time. Well, I love Mozart, but he didn't write a lot of great drum stuff. I went back to WSU in 1979. My best friend was down there and moved in together, and WSU offered a little bit larger program. I graduated WSU with a Bachelor of Music, a Bachelor of Arts in Music, and actually a Bachelor of Science too. They just kind of handed it to me because I took so many classes that were extra. Graduated there in 84. I still hadn't gotten an ed degree. Moved to California for a while with my girlfriend, married, daughters on the way. I tell my parents that I want to go back to Eastern for my master's in percussion performance. So my mom, of course, ever the teacher, says, okay, we'll pay for your master's, but you have to get your ed degree too. And I went, oh, God, you're not going to make me do that. So got through that, got to my student teaching, had a phenomenal experience with, again, a treasured friend and a great music educator at Meade High School with Mike Warner. That following year, I got hired for 1 year at the middle school. That was just kind of the start of my teaching career. And, I bumped around in several other things, but that's how I got my first teaching gig. Yeah, I was born in Walla Walla. And then my parents, they moved to Coeur d'Alene, which is just across the border in Idaho. And I think I was there until I was about 6. Mom was already teaching in Spokane, and Dad was station manager at the Coeur d'Alene airport. And it was delightful because, if my dad knew one of the pilots that had to go up, maybe working on their hours or something that they needed for their license, I could go flying with any of these guys. It was pretty cool. I have to admit, it was a fun little after school thing. And then Mom would get done with school and she'd drive all the way from Spokane, clear to the airport, way north of Coeur d'Alene, and pick me up.
It sounds like a very delightful childhood that you described.
It was really fun.
Yeah. So here you are. You now are becoming an educator. And did you work in one school? Did you move around?
So I got that 1 year gig at Horizon Middle School. It was a soft contract. It wasn't a 2 year, beyond 2 year contract. So it wasn't guaranteed to be renewed. So they just didn't renew my contract. After that, my wife at the time and I started a coffee shop, an espresso bar, because of course that was all the rage. That was just the very, very tip, late 80s of Starbucks and Pete's Coffee coming out of California, and we're just on that cutting edge. And I started teaching at Spokane Falls Community College, and I taught survey classes, survey of music, survey of rock and roll, survey of jazz. And then I also started teaching over in Coeur d'Alene at North Idaho College, the same thing. I was a percussion instructor over there, and then I did a lot of the survey classes, and I loved those, but I was adjunct at both facilities. I was never, ever going to get a full-time gig, paid the bills, and had this little coffee shop on the side that was really, really fun. And actually, I got hired 1993 or 94. I got hired by Gonzaga Prep, which is the Jesuit high school here in town. Of course, you've all heard of Gonzaga, the university. And Gonzaga did this really cool thing. One of the fathers there was a accomplished musician, and the Diocese of Spokane didn't have a band program. So what happened was I was employed by Gonzaga Prep, but I never taught there. I taught at 6 of the diocese schools, and I coordinated all 11 schools. And, these were, some of them were pretty decent sized little bands. It was delightful. I did that for 5 years. And it was a lot of driving, but I loved it. I loved working for Gonzaga Prep, and I loved working for the diocese. And it's funny because I do have a clarinetist in my orchestra now that was one of my kids when I was teaching at the diocese. It's just so heartwarming that she's playing and her husband's playing. And then I got hired in the Central Valley School District, which was the school district that I went through at a middle school doing band. And then at Central Valley High School, I taught orchestra. So I got hired in 99, and I think I did that for a couple years. And then I went to Central Valley High School full time for a couple years. And then in about 2003 or 4, I got transferred to University High School, and I did band and orchestra there until I retired in 2019. I absolutely love teaching high school. They always say that everybody finds their way as to where they're supposed to be teaching. And they always say that middle school teachers should be paid double. But I loved it. And it was a lot of work. It's almost a 24/7 with 2 bands, 2 orchestras, very competitive marching band, jazz band, 0 hour. It was a lot, but I loved it.
I'm sure the kids were very grateful to have you there, and the parents.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So 2019 came around. Then at some point in time, you got involved with New Horizons. And tell us a little bit about that.
So Jerry Thomas was the director before me, and Jerry and his wife, Dottie, had done it for several years. Jerry used to call me to come be a ringer, if they always need drummers. So I would usually get called for 2 or 3 concerts a year with New Horizons. So October of 2019, I get a call from Jerry, and he is having some health issues, and he wants to know if I can take over and cover for him while he kind of sorts through some things. And I said, oh yeah, it'd be a lot of laughs, and I would love to, and anything to help you out. So January of 2020 comes around, and Jerry has talked to the 5 coaches that are part of New Horizons and kind of asked what they thought about turning over New Horizons to me. He eventually passed away from his illness very, very quickly. So I'm sure that he knew some things that were going on that he didn't share with me. I took over New Horizons here in Spokane. COVID starts in March of 2020. I remember it. It was March 9th. It was a Monday. Friday the 13th, of course, the state of Washington, under the governor's order, shut down completely. We didn't start back up until March of 22. All we really did was mostly the community. I would reach out to them, and they would communicate through each other. So we started split in half, because that's the only way I could get our numbers to where we needed to be in order to distance as we needed to be. I promised them that it was, no matter what, it was just not going to die on my watch, that no matter what it took, we were going to get through this, and we were going to come out the other side. I was just not going to let that fall apart. And we've been really successful.
Tell us a little bit about the whole setup of your band. Clearly, you have your orchestra as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how that all came about, how you started to combine the instruments? Because others would be interested to hear that as well.
Well, I don't know. I know that we had our 20th anniversary concert a couple of years ago. I still have 2 or 3 people that are original members. I believe it was started as an orchestra. It wasn't started as a band. The director before Jerry, Mike Delaney, colonel in the Air National Guard, also oversaw all of the Air Guard bands, of which there was quite an active one here at our Air Force Base. And Mike is a string player, really good string player.
Do you play a string instrument?
No, I'm just a drummer. I steal all of my good string ideas, and it was fun because when I was at university, I had a general enrollment string orchestra. And then I also had a chamber group that was limited by the Washington Music Education Association to 16. You can't be any bigger. The nice thing about that group is we could break them into small parts, trios or small groups, trios, quartets. And we went to state every year. I loved my string kids. In fact, when I retired, the string program was bigger than the band program was. Mm-hmm. If I had to do it over again, viola is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I really love viola. I don't, for some reason, I don't know what it is, viola or cello, but.
Yeah, I hear you. So tell us a little bit what New Horizons has meant to you and how you perceive what it means to the people who are in your orchestra.
It has been such a journey. I mean, I got sick and I was really candid with my group. I couldn't be in front of my group for a while, and all of the coaches stepped up. They took over full rehearsal as well as their sectional coaching rehearsal that rotated. They just really, really took over the running, the in front of the orchestra part. I could still do enough stuff behind the scenes of ordering music and getting music distributed and those kinds of secretarial kind of things, sort of pedantic kind of things. I get kind of misty thinking about it, but the orchestra had a huge collection for my wife and I. So when I finally got healthy, we could go do something together and all of that, again, orchestrated by my coaches. I think it being in a situation like that where you're willing to share your story. I mean, 1 week I'm at rehearsal and the next week I come back, I decided to shave my head because, hair was falling out and all that kind of stuff. And that was also the week that we had a wonderful article by our local fine arts and current events tabloid here called The Inlander. And they came in and they interviewed for almost 3 hours, the orchestra members. And I think it just began to coalesce some more of the sense of family that it is and the sense of community that it is. I know it really brought it to the forefront of my attention of just how much I care about these people and how much they care about me and how much fun it is to make music together and laugh together and just to be in each other's presence.
What an amazing story. You really only joined in 2019, hammered by COVID. And then once you got back, you got ill. And yet able to continue with this wonderful community that clearly must have felt your passion and willingness to remain connected in a very special way. It is really a very heartwarming story, Mark. You have been invited to conduct at the Cincinnati New Horizons Music Camp coming up in July 2025. And obviously, it'll be wonderful to meet you in person there.
I'm excited. I think I'm one of the intermediate band conductors. I think I'm going to do the bucket drumming thing, which will be really fun. I love that. Percussion ensemble, I've already gotten a hold of last year's program, kind of know where they're at.
And it is so much fun. It is exhausting, but it is so much fun.
Yeah.
So the end result, I'm always blown away by what people put together in a matter of 4 or 5 days. Yeah. And the performances are really great. If somebody were to approach you and say, Mark, I'd be interested to learn a musical instrument, or I'd like to pick something up again after so many years, what would you tell them?
We actually have 6 community groups, large community groups in Spokane. There are 4 orchestras and 2 bands. Our mission statement is also our biggest strength. And I tell my members and my coaches that I think the biggest thing that we do is that 1 hour sectional with the coaches. We're the only group in town that offers that educational component. And I think that it is so central to the NEMA vision as I understand it, that people that are, I call them emerging players, people that are emerging, reintroduced to their instrument, are in a space that's really, really positive and nurturing. I have lots and lots of talent levels and various playing levels and various amounts of time that can be dedicated to the orchestra, which is something that's been so fascinating post-COVID is that our generation just doesn't let anything get in the way of family. So we have, people come and go as their family commitments allow, and that's all perfectly okay. I just want to be there to meet them wherever they're at. The environment to relearn or to learn your instrument, I think is our biggest strength. I have people that play in mini groups. Most of my woodwind players play in a local band. Some of them are in a local flute choir, all of which I put on our Facebook page and support the community groups in any way that I possibly can, because it's really important, because we share lots and lots of members across these ensembles. You've seen it. That's the number one comment that I get, is that I'm afraid I can't hang with the rest of the players. Yeah. Wherever you're at, we can get you up to speed. If I rewrite parts, whatever it takes for a member to be successful as they progress and become stronger, and just whatever it is. We started this fun little jazz band last summer, and it's just been a hoot. It's about 30 members. I think I have one or two flutes, 4 or 5 violins, viola, 2 cellos, and then the normal instrumentation. I have bass clarinets playing tenor sax parts, and it just doesn't matter.
A unique instrument choices, really, for a jazz or swing band, and it works.
Yeah, it does. It's just fine.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic to be open to that. And where none of us are really aiming to become professional musicians. We just want to have fun. And I think that is clearly what you're offering there in Spokane. Younger,
20, 30, 40 somethings, not wanting to put their instrument away, of making sometimes very difficult life choices to not put their instrument away. Daycares and sitters for their kids and their family, and I can attend here when my husband can be home or my wife can be home, or I'm just so honored that they would make those decisions and those choices to be with us. And it breathes such a wonderful energy into the group. Youthful energy is pretty infectious.
Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you a little bit better and to hear your story. Can't wait to meet you live in Cincinnati in July, and we'll be having a lot of fun there.
Thank you so much for asking. I'm excited.
Okay, well, we'll see each other in July.
All right, you take care.
Thank you. I would like to thank Mark Tietjen for this interview. To find out more about Mark's New Horizons Orchestra in Spokane, please go to their Facebook page. Music for this podcast by Mary Riddle, Swag On. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Music Forever. If you are interested to be interviewed for this podcast, please email us at nimapodcast@gmail.com. That is NHIMA podcast@gmail.com. See you next time.